Welcome to our continuation of the Project Destination Clark webinar series. My name is Christopher Munoz-Colleen. I'm Assistant Director of Admission, and I'll be your host today. And for this current session, which we're calling Multicultural and First Generation Student Experiences, we wanted to give you a chance to ask Clarkies who identify as students of color and or first generation college students about their lives at Clark, what kind of organizations they're part of, what kind of resources they use, or any other questions you have. We actually will do a quick tech tutorial before we get started. So you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, we have a Q&A feature and a chat feature, and they have different functions. So if you're having an issue with the technology, you want to use the chat feature. Let us know if you suddenly can't hear us or something like that. That's the chat. If you want to ask our panelists a question, feel free to use the Q&A feature. And you can actually begin now submitting questions if you would like. But I want to mention that after you submit your question, you might not see it right away. This is actually in order to ensure that we can get to as many different questions as possible. We have someone behind the scenes who is queuing up questions one at a time. And I also want to mention that we will answer some of your questions on air and some via text. And we appreciate your patience as we all navigate these new waters. And if we don't get to your question now, either on air or through text, you'll receive a personal email later on in the next days from someone from Clark who's answering that question. So I also want to mention that if you think of another question down the road, you're always welcome to email us at admissions@clarku.edu. So that is all of the technical setup. And we're actually going to get started with introducing the panelists. So I am joined by three panelists, Henley, Alex, and Domenica. Would you all please introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name's Henley. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a sophomore at Clark. I am a double major in English and Women's and Gender Studies. Outside of the classroom, one of the clubs that I'm most involved in is Variant Dance Troupe, which is our non-audition-based dance group on campus. I'm from Cumberland, Rhode Island, and I am a first-generation college student.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Nazaire. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm from Maryland, currently in Maryland actually right now, and Haiti. Outside of the classroom, first of all, my major is combined languages, and I'm a double minor in both computer science and economics. And outside of admissions, I was a resident advisor up until the end. As well as a former athlete in basketball and tennis. And I'm also part of organizations such as Latin American Student Organization, Caribbean African Student Association, Black Student Union, and other organizations such as that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Domenica, and I am a junior at Clark. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Ecuador, but I've lived for most of my life in New Jersey, which is where I'm at now. At Clark, I study political science on the international relations track with a minor in biology and a concentration in law and society. Aside from working at admissions, I am part of the student council at Clark. I'm actually the executive secretary. Student government takes up a lot of my life. And aside from that, I'm also part of the Latin American Student Organization as well. And I'm wearing my little lasso sweater. And I've also volunteered in the Worcester community in a couple different capacities. So that's a little bit about me.
So thank you all for introducing yourselves. And I'm sure all the audience heard how involved all of you are. And we have actually a really relevant first question. Which is, how did you find out about these opportunities at Clark before you arrived on campus?
Alex, you can start. I participated in one of the pre-orientation programs as a first year. I participated in the ACE program. And I found out about this program, actually, I got an email from the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office inviting me to apply. So then I went on the website and I checked out, the information that was available about the program and decided that it would be a really great opportunity. And from there, I applied. I would say that a lot of the relevant kind of events and programs that I've been involved in since I've found out about through the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office. They send out a monthly newsletter with all of the different awesome events that they're putting on. And it's a really great place to go to kind of find out what's going on.
Likewise, I took part in ACE as well, and I got an email sometime this summer before my first year about the ACE and how it goes about by Haley Haywood, the director. In terms of other organizations that I've been a part of, such as like Latin American Student Organization and Black Student Union, it was kind of through both. It was actually three things. It was through ACE. Some people talked about it in ACE. One of our mentors actually was part of the Caribbean African Student Association. Latin American Student Organization, I think I learned about in my Accepted Students Day. And I think Black Student Union, other organizations you just kind of hear about. And the first week of school, towards the end around Friday, I believe, you end up signing up for a lot of the different organizations. So even if you haven't heard about it, you would still be able to go through an entire club fair and see all the different organizations that are available.
Yeah, I kind of had a different experience. So I heard of the pre-orientation programs, but I think I missed the deadline to apply or something, so I wasn't a part of them. But once I got on campus, I was happy to see that you could still like engage with the Multicultural First Generation Student Support Office in different ways. So I think one of the first ways that I got engaged with the office was by getting an email about an affinity space for undocumented students. And that's one of the first ways that I kind of engage with the office. And then I think from there, once you've like participated in a workshop or something like that, the office has you on like their newsletter list. And so you get information about different resources from there. And then similar to Alex, I also went to like the fall club fair where like a bunch of different clubs and organizations like showcase kind of what they do. And like, if you're interested, you get to sign up and like hear a little bit more about the club or go to the general interest meeting. And so at the club fair and also through like word of mouth of some like friends I had made in the first month of school, I heard about LASSO, and that's how I got involved with the club.
Well, thank you, by the way. We actually have a follow-up question that I think would be great for you, Dominica. This is from one of our audience members who says, how do you join the student council?
Yay! I'm always excited to have someone join student council. Well, the process there's different ways to get involved in student council, a bunch of different ways actually. Usually the most like, if you want to like fully engage in student council, the best way to do that is to be a representative. And in the fall, at the beginning of the year, we usually announce all the positions that are open for running for. So in student council, we have hall reps, class reps, and then reps based on different like demographics in school. So we have international student reps. We have, I was recently part of making the Equity and Inclusion Cabinet, which is a cabinet of 5 representatives that work on different like equity initiatives through the student council. And basically we announce the positions, and you fill a petition with like your friends signing it, saying that they'd like you to like be part of whatever position you like to run for. And then we have an election, and then if you get voted in, you're part of student council. Aside from that, we also have appointed positions where you could like apply to be part of either our judiciary committee or grants committee or different committees that are appointed positions. So in that, you would only like fill the need of that committee. And then there's also ad hoc committees. So for example, this year we had one on menstrual equity, and that's basically made up of council representatives and then just students like from the student body who are interested on like working on one specific area or like addressing one specific need on campus. And I think student council is a really great way to like get involved on campus and to I think, advocate for different needs on our campus. So I think I've been doing a lot of meaningful work through that avenue, and I definitely encourage anyone who's interested in student government to join.
Thank you. And we have another question that's kind of in this neighborhood. This is about what kind of events have you taken part in? And I guess that could be kind of open-ended, whichever ones stand out to you in your involvements at Clark.
I'll go first. One of the events that I always look forward to and appreciate is the First Generation Student Celebration, which happens in the fall. And basically, you know, First Generation Clark students as well as faculty are invited to the McCann Resource Room in Dana Commons, which is a really awesome building with a lot of different offices, including the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office. It's a really great way to get connected with other first generation college students and faculty as well. And I especially like hearing from faculty and kind of like learning about their journeys in education and how they got to where they are and different opportunities that they were able to find and different like people who made a difference along the way. So that's probably one of my favorite events.
In terms of my favorite event, my favorite would probably have to be Noche Latina. So this is an event hosted by a Latin American student organization towards, I think, around November, if I'm correct. And in it, there are a bunch of dance performances performed by the Salsa Club, as well as some members of Latin American student organization who are who want to dance, and also there's food. So I mean, everybody loves that, and also I believe also poetry took place. There's some different things, and then there's like a photo booth, and that's probably been my funnest event for the past 2 years.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to answer this by saying two types of events. So some of my favorite, I think, events that like are meant to be like workshops or like helpful to provide resources to students have definitely been some of the ones that the Multicultural First Generation Student Support Office puts on. So I really appreciate when they like do workshops targeted towards like first gen and POC students on campus. So sometimes they'll partner with other offices such as like Career Connections and do like a workshop on like your resume or a workshop on like applying to jobs, but they'll like target it towards your experience and your background and your identity, which I really appreciate. And then on the other side of that, I like to echo like Alex's point about like cultural clubs, big events. I also love Lazo's Noche Latina, and I also like all the other cultural clubs, like big events that they do either in the fall or the spring, because it's really a great time to like, I think that the community comes together at Clark where and a cultural or identity-based club like celebrates our culture or something about our culture and shares it with the larger community, and we all come together and, you know, dance, have performances, have good food. It's always so fun.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I can attest to the first gen event because that was a lot of fun. And I think faculty and staff hold speeches as well about their experiences being first gen. That was great. So we have a question. This might be for Dominica. What types of credits do students receive for doing volunteering, like student volunteering?
Yeah. So I think I'm not 100% sure about this. I think some clubs may, if they're able to like make themselves like a partial class, like I think some clubs that aren't necessarily like volunteering, such as like I think Model UN or Mock Trial, receive like a half credit for being part of the club and the class. But really it's just participating in the club. I think you're sometimes able to, I haven't like completely like experienced this or know too much about this, but I think sometimes you're able to do like an internship in the Worcester community that may be at a nonprofit organization and receive credit for that. But I think you have to apply to get that considered for credit. But other than that, I'm not 100% sure about credits for volunteering.
it just makes me think also, we have a webinar that would be really great for that question specifically on April 23rd. We're doing research internships and study abroad. And one of the panelists for that webinar works in advising in our internship program. So they would be kind of more of an expert on this, on that topic. So we have another question as well. This is, what is the pre-orientation program and how does it work?
Go ahead, Henry.
All right. So there are two super awesome pre-orientation programs that the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office offers for students. Alex and I both participated in the ACE program, which stands for Advancing Clark Excellence. This is a program that runs about 3 weeks before orientation starts, and students who are who identify as students of color and or first generation college students are welcome to apply for the program. There are usually about 30 of us that participate. Basically, we get to come onto campus 3 weeks early, get the lay of the land. We also take 2 half-credit courses, one in like writing and one in math, just to kind of get a taste of that college level academic work. And we also participate in a lot of like leadership building activities, a lot of really intentional conversations about what kind of identities we're bringing to our educational experiences, and how to navigate higher education in general. I found it to be a really like powerful experience, and a lot of my friends that I keep in contact with now are friends from this program. I know that the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office also has a program. This program, I believe, is about 2 weeks. It's the Connections program. This is a program specifically for students of color. And I haven't personally experienced that program, but I have a lot of friends who have, and they say that it's also like a super impactful experience where you're, doing leadership building activities and kind of having these intentional conversations about identity and education.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think one of the best part of both ACE and Connections is just the fact that it exposes you to so many resources on campus. It allows you to, make friends, as well as really just anything you could think of that could just make your college experience so much easier first. So, that being making friends, knowing some professors. We also got to meet the president of the school, as well as many different other faculty. We kind of knew our ways around campus before even orientation. And a lot of what was going on in orientation we had already known about. So we just kind of like, by the time the school year had started, we almost felt like a second year because, we just knew so much about it. Yeah.
And this is also a point to mention, a future webinar. We'll announce these at the end in more detail, but in a week from today, we're having actually a webinar with the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office. So they will be able to answer more specific questions. We actually just have another question related, which is there a difference between Connections and ACE other than the groups of people involved? So I guess because neither of you have done Connections, that might be a question for next week's webinar. But from Henley and Alex, from your experience, if you could say, maybe to speak to ACE, so that if you could say, in a few sentences, what the focus of ACE is for those 2 weeks that you're on campus, or 3 weeks.
I'd say the main difference is ACE has an education is basically an education program. As much as it does provide for us, it is an education program. We get the credits. In Connections, you don't. You come a little later on during campus. So our program was about finished by the time the Connections had started. And so they had everything except for the education aspect. They also got to meet resources on campus. They knew their way around campus, and they had those discussion sessions as well. But they just didn't have classes. So that's kind of the main difference. But we also, we got to know each other as well. It's not like, we're against them.
Yeah, we're all on campus at the same time, so we did have a lot of events with like the ACE participants and the Connection participants would all come together for a lot of events, and there was a lot of mingling in between the programs as well. So I also really liked those events where we all got to come together, because you're all on campus at the same time and nobody else really is, and so like it would be kind of weird if you didn't interact with each other. But yeah.
Thank you. And also we have another question about those pre-orientation programs, but I will defer to next week's webinar. I think Haley, who's the director of the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office, would be able to answer that in more detail. And if additional questions come up about anything we've discussed so far, you're always welcome to email admissions@clarku.edu. I just want to mention that before we go on. So we do have another question, and this is, Henley, you actually alluded to this earlier because you mentioned Dana Commons. Mm-hmm. So this is a question about affinity spaces. So what kind of spaces are there on campus for students, and what do people actually use them for?
I think that Dana Commons is definitely kind of your one-stop shop for affinity spaces. There are a lot of spaces within Dana Commons that are super identity focused, such as the Fireside Lounge, where a lot of different clubs and organizations that are kind of identity focused will hold events there. I know Prism, which is our LGBTQ group on campus, had a really great event last fall where we all kind of sat around in Fireside Lounge, which is this super cozy space, by the way, and shared coming out stories. And like that was a really powerful event, and we were so grateful to be able to do it in such a comfortable space. There's also the McCann Resource Room, which actually the picture on the slide is the McCann Resource Room. And this is actually open for for students to come in and, do homework or hang out. There are a lot of resources in the resource room, like books you can take out and things like that. And this is also where the Multicultural and First Generation Student Support Office holds student success workshops, which Dominica was talking about earlier in the webinar. I know there are a lot of other spaces, such as like a prayer and meditation room that's available for students to use. Alex and Dominica, do you have any other cool spaces that you want to mention? Because I know that there are more.
Yeah, you did pretty well at like naming all the places in Dana Commons. One other place that sometimes people forget about is the Mosaic Suite. And so the Mosaic Suite is actually based on Mosaic, the coalition, which is the coalition of all identity and background like based clubs. And we actually have like that group meets weekly or bi-weekly to like bring together all the culture and identity based clubs in order to like together like put forward like different things or like support each other's events and support each other as like identity and culture based clubs. And the Mosaic Suite is also like it's a smaller office / space that students will come in and like do work in. There's like little individual study spaces in there, but like there's also this really big bean bag that everyone likes to sleep in. So that's also a place where we have like club meetings and things like that, or like Lasso eBoard meets there. But yeah, and I think also like to Henley's point, in the Fireside Lounge and kind of like the upstairs area of Dana Commons, we have held a lot of different events like the cultural clubs do. So Lasso most recently had our Mercadito event there, which is when we showcase food from different countries. So different Lasso members make food and like share that with the community, and it's an open event to everyone at Clark. So that's also a fun way that we like to use the space just for any types of events, and then club meetings and different affinity spaces as well.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I think Henley and Dominica both said my favorite spots, the Mosaic room, as well as the McCann Resource Room, and even the beanbag is that's where I take a lot of naps, actually, honestly, towards the weekend. But yeah, usually when I'm actually doing my homework, I don't usually even go to the library, just because in Dana Commons, the spaces are not only quiet, but they just, feel like comfortable spaces to be in. So a lot of the time I'm doing my homework or, chatting or anything else you could think of doing in the library. In terms of affinity spaces, a group that I'm a part of is called Focus, which is for male identifying students of color. And I've been a part of it since actually the beginning of my first year. There's one called Sisters in Stride for female identifying students of color, as well as QT SOC. I believe that's queer, transgender student, something around there. But yeah, those are comfortable affinity spaces we have, and they meet, at least for ours, we meet 2 times a week. So that's also another way that I was able to make a lot of friends, and a lot of the people who use those affinity spaces end up coming to Data Commons a lot of the time.
Thank you all for answering those questions and taking us through Dana Commons. I actually have a related question here. So we're almost at time. So if someone could give a short answer to this. This is from Mia, who asked, are there any clubs, organizations, or events that are identity-based and include the arts? I have one in mind, and I'm thinking of Black Arts Explosion. But does anyone have direct experience with Black Arts Explosion or know more about it? So I can tell you a little bit about Black Arts Explosion. And Mia, I can send you an email afterwards and maybe connect you with someone who's been involved. But that's an event where there's different kind of art activities happening in different spaces. And it's kind of an interactive event. So there might be like singing in one room, painting in another. And it's kind of exactly the nexus that you're describing of identity in the arts. If I can find more resources, I'll send that to you, Mia. And anyone else, if you're curious, feel free to email me.
I also wanted to comment that a lot of clubs, while like cultural and identity-based clubs, do a lot of different types of programming. So I think there's definitely been events that include some type of like art in it. For example, in Lasso, a big part of our events has to do with like putting on or like decorations or doing different types of art to represent like whatever cultural aspect of our event we're trying to put forward. So for Noche Latina, last year our celebration was like how different countries in Latin America share or like celebrate Day of the Dead. And so part of our members made like different types of I don't know if you would call them like artifacts or different types of art pieces that like represented different countries' celebrations of those things. So I think there's definitely a lot of ways or like a lot of different events that clubs put on to that like include art.
That also reminds me that at the First Gen event, we had an art making station and decorated part of the McCann Resource Room. So yeah, that's true. There's a lot of interwoven art elements in these events. So, but Mia, I'll send you an email after this, and then we can follow up more about that. But we're just about at time. We're gonna ask one more question while we're at the end here, which is, what do you love most about Clark?
I'll start. I would say that my favorite thing about Clark has definitely been the connections that I've been able to make. Very importantly with my peers, but also with the faculty and professors that I've come in contact with. I think everybody at Clark really genuinely is invested in the work that the students are doing and wants to see you succeed. And I've really appreciated all the interactions that I've had with faculty and staff at Clark.
I think my favorite thing about Clark would definitely have to be just the fact that it allows you to be, well-rounded. And I mean that in a sense of kind of I've been able to involve myself in so many different organizations, clubs. Because me, originally, I was thinking I was going to come in as an athlete and just end up playing basketball or tennis, and then just schoolwork after that. But I've been able to join so many organizations, be part of clubs, be part of so many different things. The club that, Clark is, has a lot of people promoting, and you would see that a lot when you get to campus, just how much people encourage you to be part of those. So I think that's probably what I love most about Clark.
I think what I love most about Clark is, like Henley, the connections I've made, but I think mostly with like other students and like with students in different organizations as well. I think some of like the most like exciting things that have happened to me in my experience at Clark have been like the work that I've done with student council and like the meaningful work there, and to see so many people passionate about so many different things is always so exciting. And then something small that I wanted to share was my favorite like scene at Clark is when it's a sunset and like a warm day, and it's like, and you just any point on campus is like so relaxing. I could just sit outside for like the rest of the sunset. It's really nice.
There really is something about sunsets in Worcester. I don't know what it is, but it's true. They're really something else. So thank you all, by the way. We're at the end of our time here, but thank you all for tuning in. Remember that Project Destination Clark is still growing strong. We've listed the next 3 webinars that are happening. So we're continuing to devote our webinars to those topics that you told us you'd like to learn about. And you can check a full list at clarku.edu/admitted/webinars. The webinar is on the screen. Our next webinar is actually about the first year experience, tomorrow at 6 p.m. And I just wanted to mention, if we couldn't answer your question today, you are welcome to reach out to admissions@clarku.edu. And I'm thinking about some of the questions we got, for example, the credits for volunteering, things like that. Please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to get in touch with you and answer those questions more fully. And even if those questions are coming to you in 2 hours or 2 weeks, you're always welcome to email us at admissions@clarku. But until next time, have fun and stay healthy, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Take care.